It was an ordinary morning in the bustling city of Richmond, Virginia, where the echoes of the past often collided with the opportunities of the present. The sun was barely peeking over the horizon, illuminating the ornate architecture of the Richmond Courthouse, an edifice steeped in history and cloaked in the atmosphere of power and dignity. This day began like any other, but beneath its surface lay a storm of unresolved grievances and whispered injustices. Elena Rodriguez stepped out of her cherry-red sedan, the polished chrome glimmering in the early light. She straightened her smartly tailored gray suit, a stark contrast against the backdrop of the courthouse's desolate stone facade. The air carried a tinge of urgency as her heels clicked rhythmically against the pavement, capturing the attention of passers-by who were none the wiser about the turmoil awaiting her inside. Despite her status as a respected judge, Elena understood that the world often did not recognize her authority, especially in a space nominally dominated by figures of old. As she approached the security checkpoint, a threshold meant to safeguard but which often served as a reminder of her own vulnerabilities, the atmosphere felt electric, charged with unspoken tension. Deputy James Collins stood sentinel at the entrance, a man reputed for both his unwavering dedication and outdated views of authority. His eyes narrowed as Elena approached. A superficial glance at her attire did little to inspire recognition. In his mind, she was merely another woman, someone who should certainly not expect any special treatment. "Hold it!" he barked, raising a gloved hand to obstruct her path. "Step aside, please." Elena's heart skipped a beat as she paused. "Excuse me?" she replied with unexpected calmness, a fortress trying to withstand an imminent siege. "You heard me. We have protocol here. No one walks in without a proper ID," he insisted. His tone was rough, dismissive. Without missing a beat, she reached inside her blazer, producing her judicial badge with a steady hand. Its metallic glimmer should have commanded respect, but Collins merely snatched it away, inspecting it like an inconvenience. "You need to understand that you can't just stroll into a federal building looking like—" He waved dismissively at her attire, a facet of her identity he refused to acknowledge. "I assure you, I'm here on official business," she countered, her voice steady but tinged with an underlying tension. "Sure, that business can wait. You fit the profile for a random search," he remarked, the corners of his mouth twitching as if he found some amusement in the authority he wielded. With a sudden, rough grab on her arm, he hastily repositioned her toward a side hallway, guiding her off into a sterile, dim screening area filled with screens and scanning devices. The coldness of the room hung heavy in the air, a stark contrast to the vibrant day outside. Elena felt her chest tighten. "What are you doing?" she demanded, her composure now a mere mask obscuring a rising tide of fury. "You have no right to detain me." Collins dismissed her words, gesturing curtly toward a chair. "Sit down. We're following protocol." Two other deputies entered, their expressions void of empathy or understanding. One gripped her wrist firmly while the other approached with a set of clippers, casual cruelty glinting in his gaze. "What are those for?" Elena's voice climbed an octave, a last plea for recognition, for humanity. "Just a precaution," Collins sneered. "You could be hiding weapons in that hair of yours." As the machine roared to life, the vibrations seeped into her consciousness, drowning out her thoughts as the first clumps of her dark, lustrous hair fell to the floor. She stayed resolute, even as laughter bubbled from the deputies, mocking her dignity piece by piece. "That's more like it," Collins chuckled, as if he had triumphed over an adversary in a battle of wills. Elena's fists clenched at her sides, that humor only fueling the fire within her. "You will come to regret this," she stated, her voice quieter but packed with impending wrath, her mind working swiftly toward vengeance. The procedures ended as abruptly as they had begun. Collins waved her off dismissively. "You're free to go. Courtroom's down the hall." Collecting her scattered composure, Elena walked out, every step heavy but resolute, a tempest brewing beneath her skin. Inside, rage bubbled, an ironclad determination seasoned with humiliation. Collins hadn't just violated her physically. He had awakened something far more potent: purpose. As she entered the main courtroom, the atmosphere shifted. Heads turned, conversations halted, and confusion clouded the faces of those within. Elena strode past a throng of assembled lawyers and press, the weight of their assumptions pressing against her shoulders, but she bore the burden with grace. "Your Honor?" The clerk's voice broke through the muted whispers. "Yes," Elena replied softly, but there was a steeliness to it. Taking her place behind the bench, she felt the robe, heavy yet empowering, a shield against the very injustices she was determined to combat. "We will begin with testimonies related to case number 1162, the People versus Richmond City Police," she announced, a formal call to order. Elena silently catalogued the faces of those who had laughed, those who had turned away when she was at her most vulnerable. The reality of her situation began to sink into the crevices of her resolve. She was no longer the victim. She had shifted into the role she was born for, the arbiter of justice, and she intended to reclaim every inch of her dignity as she set the ground rules for change. The first witness to take the stand was Officer Leonard Hill, who had been part of the police force during the protest in question. His confident demeanor crumbled under the heat of Elena's piercing gaze. "Did you authorize any form of excessive force against those protesters?" she interrogated, her tone a balance of calm authority and barely restrained indignation. "Yes, Your Honor, but only necessary measures," he stammered. As the proceedings continued, Elena became acutely aware of Deputy Collins edging toward the back, seeking refuge in the shadows, aware that the sun was setting on his reign of tyranny. It was only a matter of time before the truth cornered him, just as it had cornered her. After a brief recess, she called the court back to order. The atmosphere buzzed with apprehension as the next witness took the stand. An elderly man whose testimony about his son being brutally arrested during a peaceful demonstration sent shockwaves through the chamber. Each word he spoke was steeped with agony, and his courage resonated deeply within the courtroom walls. Justice must not only be sought, it must be earned, restored, Elena proclaimed, her voice traversing the spectrum from sympathy to fierce determination. It wasn't long before she found herself summoning Collins forward, his facade of authority cracking under the weight of her scrutiny. "Deputy Collins," she began, her voice laced with authority and expectation. "You have served this court, but today you stand accused of more than just misconduct. You represent the failures of a system that has sheltered your actions." Her words pierced the air, and Collins' courage faltered. "I didn't think it applied to you," he murmured, a feeble defense now that the truth loomed before them all. Elena rested her brow against her hand. "It's time we stop viewing justice as abstract and begin to recognize the faces behind the fears. Are you really ready to confront the accountability that comes with this role?" As the day unfolded into evening, Elena's spirit soared. The ripple of her resolve was growing visible to the room, transforming it into a crucible of reform. The crowd outside the courthouse murmured of her name. Echoing back encouragement, in the form of chants for justice, a living voice of the systemic overhaul she was initiating. With each moment that passed, she coaxed the truth from the mouths of witnesses, too long silenced by fear and dismissiveness. Her presence as a judge served as a counterbalance to the historical transgressions, making room for new dialogues about inadequate leadership and invoking transformations that weren't just necessary, but long overdue. In the subsequent weeks, Elena moved forward with relentless determination, unearthing complaints that had been buried and rejected for far too long. The newly formed Rodriguez Mandate addressed issues of civil rights explicitly, mandating transparency within the court system and implementing bias training for all courthouse employees. As she unveiled it to the public, there was an almost palpable energy rippling through Richmond. The outpouring of support came from all corners, tying the community together in a tapestry woven from collective resilience. Faces that had once felt invisible now found their voices through her, and hope intertwined with their powerful declarations for accountability that transformed the courthouse into a beacon of justice rather than a mere symbol of authority. In time, Elena became not just a judge, but a symbol of a new paradigm, leading not just with authority, but with empathy and understanding. Her existence in that courtroom became a light in the dark, guiding a generation towards the belief that justice, even when laden with complexity, could ultimately be served. Soon, the day came for the position of Deputy Collins to be formally reviewed. The courtroom was underscored with tension, but charged with expectation. Elena stood firm, knowing this moment resonated with far more than the breezy formalities of law. It was the culmination of her journey, a testament to resilience, battling against negligence. And as they called Collins to the stand one last time, his shoulders slumped beneath the weight of not just his own actions, but the years of unchecked authority stemmed from ignorance. Elena delivered her verdict, not from a place of vengeance, but from an embodiment of justice unblemished by arrogance. The future needed to be safeguarded, and she would spare no effort in ensuring that such wounds wouldn't continue to fester. Collins was swiftly removed from his position, an example made of accountability and the consequences that stem from retaining unchecked power. And with the echoes of the judgment lingering in the halls of the Richmond courthouse, the air filled with hope began to transform not only the judicial system, but the very fabric of society, paving the way for a brighter tomorrow. Elena Rodriguez walked forward, knowing her greatest battles were yet to come, but she firmly grasped the truth that she could change them all, one court case at a time. And thus began the saga of reclaiming justice, where no one would stand alone, and where the voices that had been contained would ultimately mold the outcome for generations to come.